please join me in welcoming, thanking Gina and Chumni. Thank you. So, moving on. Our next presentation, our presenting author, Mr. Chris Kernow. Programs Manager, Rangelands NRM, and joining him today is co-author is Sasha Torresini, Project Officer for Rangelands NRM. Chris, do you want me to read that long autobiography, or are you happy for us to just jump straight into it?
Straight in.
Okay, without further ado, please welcome Chris and Sasha.
G'day everyone. My name's Chris. I grew up in Ngurubal country in the Northern Tablelands, New South Wales. Been 20 years now in WA, and I haven't looked back east ever since. I just want to start the next slide to have some audio.
Our children, young ones, they don't even know what that is. What's out in the bush. Nobody telling them, nobody taking them and showing them.
Well, we're just listening there to the voice of the Madu elder, and she's talking to us about what's important on her country, and what's at stake for her if we don't listen to that. And it's this voice and the voice of many others that we've been listening to in the last 6 months, and it's the result of this listening which forms the basis of this talk today. I want to say pay my respects to the elders past, present and future of the Yahoo mob here today. And I just want to also give a bit of an update about Rangelands NRM, who we are. And we've been working in WA for a long time. I've been with Rangelands for the last nearly 10 years. We're a small team of people, and we help to connect and build partnerships across this big country that we're working with, utilise the investments that we get from various parties to the most efficient purposes to support those land managers, whoever they are. Over the years of listening and learning, we've come to understand that there's a chasm between what's being offered and what is actually needed. And by building these partnerships over a long period of time, we've recognised the importance of listening to country. But we can only listen to the country by listening to those who can hear it. So we've asked ourselves, are we listening? And so nearly a year ago, my colleague Sasha, who's going to be presenting today shortly, and Sasha herself has spent the last 3 years before she joined us in the last about a year ago, but previous to that she worked in Punmu in the Great Sandy Desert, working with Madu mob as a ranger coordinator. And we've been listening to, and we've been looking at the investment that we've got from the federal government for the last 5 years, and that's really come through threatened species funding to us as an NRM through our bilby program, malleefowl program, night parrot, and over the years been other threatened species money that we've got from the feds. And this is good, but this has created for us a lot of opportunities, but a lot of questions. So that's what we did for the last 6 or 8 months. We just went and listened. So we interviewed 28 Aboriginal rangers and elders, 8 Aboriginal program managers, 10 ranger coordinators and 5 scientists who are working with those mobs. And we undertook about 40 hours of interviews throughout the rangelands, and which we've been spending many weeks, especially Sasha, transcribing everything we've heard and sending that back out to everyone to listen to. So that today we're distilling what we've heard, and without further ado, I want to hand over to Sasha.
Not that tall. Hey everyone, I'd like to thank Chris for the introduction, but also really like to thank everyone that spent their time to speak with us for this evaluation. They do not have a lot of it, so just acknowledging that, and props to them. So the evaluation interviewed our threatened species partners and produced strong and consistent messages from across the rangelands. Healthy country and landscapes require healthy partnerships, and in this time of division, we do invite everyone here to keep an open mind to moving forward as a collective here. We've been listening, and we hope that presenting this might encourage some deeper relationships and understandings. The feedback will be kind of shown through 4 different lenses, and the first is country. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Hey. So what's working for country? Right-way fire has been effectively reducing the damage of catastrophic wildfires, and we heard that more fire is still needed in most cases. Traditional cat hunting around priority sites protects threatened species areas and brings in a good feed. Two-way science, someone told us, provides a living source of knowledge that can provide historic information on conservation professionals are now recognising how much of a benefit that is. The culturally relevant employment offered by ranger programs and country manager programs allows people to get back on country, and programs that support old people leading teams and passing down knowledge fill a previously concerning gap. Lastly, Indigenous-led planning has improved the success of projects, and cultural safety, we've been told, does need to be present at the highest levels of program development. An important thing to mention here is that we kept getting the message that health of country is not separable to the health of people. If we just asked about the good stuff, it wouldn't have been a very good evaluation. So what can we do better? We know the big threats to healthy country are being fire, ferals and weeds, but we heard stronger concerns that aren't really reflected in agreements. One person told us, I've lost a lot of old people, you know. Loss of traditional ecological and cultural knowledge was the biggest identified threat to healthy country for these teams. One person told us, young people not being engaged in the work, I think, might be the biggest risk. Climate change is considered a major threat to country and communities in the regions. Extreme weather, hotter fires and shorter burn seasons are affecting the landscape. One ranger told us, unhealthy country, when you see it, it'll make you sad. It makes you cry, you feel it. The last major common threat is resources extraction. One elder told us, they are the worst ones, we don't know what to do about it. Hanging over country is our colonial structure that we're also familiar with. We heard how systems are being imprinted onto Indigenous ranger teams and how things that work effectively aren't always available to aren't always informing what's available to work with. Still, there have been great outcomes for species and landscapes, but this has been achieved often through creative thinking for a lot of groups. Money is essential, but spending remains inflexible. We were told one emerging risk is that funding is tied to like the sexy things. It's hard to find funds for cars and bases, and teams often work out of sea containers and sheds in extreme conditions. Improving agreements to be more suitable, one person told us, requires accepting the complexity without making it complicated. Short-term contracts delivering complicated outcomes don't support strategic thinking, and time pressure complicates Indigenous-led planning. A square peg in a round hole was something we heard over and over. There's something much bigger to managing country that investors seem to be missing. The context of Indigenous land managers in the rangelands is often not understood by investors, and programs need to support holistic land management rather than focusing on a single species. The rangelands' unpredictable conditions require more flexibility in contracts, and deeper relationships across the sector are needed to kind of round out the peg. We were told projects should always have space for Indigenous input and have the cultural lens up front. We heard about ranger team priorities being influenced by grant opportunity, and that non-Indigenous priorities may be affecting and impacting traditional understandings of healthy country. New requirements of engagement are very important, but create a capacity suck for ranger teams and country managers. These projects are often going too fast and generally lack experienced staff with cultural capacity to create cultural safety in this process. We were told there are so many new grants that ask, how are you going to engage with Indigenous people? But don't ask, how are Indigenous people able to engage with you? Viewing the community level and organisations, a lack of capacity is a chronic problem, and it's chronic through regions, not just in this sector. Every single group we interviewed identified that as a key threat. Teams need multiple contracts often to cover operational expenses, which does create unsustainable workloads a lot of the time. It leads to a lot of issues such as data mismanagement, and coordinators don't always have the time or systems to mentor rangers and country managers to come up into managing their own data. There's huge concern about the health of communities as coordinators, and the effects that this might have on country and culture into the future. People are leaving remote locations across the board, and without housing and services that work together, it's hard for them to return. Good relationships, as we all know, are the foundation of program success in this space. We were told land management is a social science as well. We call it politics. Including young people and babies in programs allows transfer of traditional ecological and cultural knowledge across generations and provides young mums an option for work. These activities are hard to deliver, but every ranger team told us that they wanted more kids on country. Ranger exchanges are another massive positive thing that comes out of this, and rangers sharing knowledge, stories, and teaching new skills is highly motivating. Everyone we spoke to gave us great feedback about that and wants more of this to happen. Lastly, casting our eyes on the human view, these programs have created real options to work out on country, which is the most effective way of protecting threatened species. International recognition of the success of these programs is growing, and traditional custodians are proud of their ranger teams. Unfortunately, the human cost is high. Burnout is a common outcome for staff, and according to worried Indigenous land managers, staff are too stressed, and high turnover is hard for rangers who develop relationships slowly. We were told they're here for a little time and then gone. People are worried about overwhelm within ranger teams. Their time is becoming sought after, but there's a lack of capacity building to develop their skills to meet that requirement. Rangers are operating in two worlds, and both come with cultural responsibilities. A ranger told us, "I like going out, I like doing this ranger work, but I got a lot of other stuff to do. Native title, working for art, it's too much for me." Career growth for rangers and country managers often lacks clear pathways. Programs require specific skills of administration to meet requirements, rather than offering accessible reporting methods. Movement into permanent roles is difficult as they don't allow space for a cultural responsibility, and people mention jobs should be created to support rangers with specialised interests and skills rather than just hoping they take the white fella jobs. Summing up, we don't speak for our partners directly, but we had some clear advice from them. What we heard was that we need to change the jobs to suit the mobs and invest more in staff that can build capacity. Investors need to create real pathways to bridge the gap between their intentions of handover and what's really needed to achieve that. We need to assess the human, social and environmental costs of not listening and try and decolonise our mindset and contracts to genuinely supporting self-determination for Indigenous land managers. Healthy country requires healthy communities, and the health of the rangelands hangs in the balance between two cultures. We need to understand the challenges faced by ranger teams. One person told us, going forward, people need to get out there and see what we're working with to get a better understanding from behind their computers. Loss of knowledge held by elders is a national emergency and needs more action. We need to be recording stories where it's appropriate for people, for when people are gone. Everyone is worried about the effects knowledge loss might have on restricting cultural safety on country. If we want to protect and conserve biodiversity in Australia, the Indigenous worldview may need to be embedded into programs that are delivered by Indigenous land managers. One person told us, another ranger, "I want to go back. I want to be back on country. Country is really important, you know. I feel really happy seeing country and looking after animals, taking the kids out, teaching them, hunting. All the kids, they come to you, Balya. From our desks, we can't always hear country. We must build trust, seek to understand and listen deeply together." So our call to action for the conference is more of a question, which is, are we listening? And I'll leave you lastly with another little short excerpt from a Maru elder. if it works.
It was a nice place and they shook hands to us and it's your country now. And he said, look after it, Kanila. Care for her eldest gunnet. Oh, the special copy that all has to clean it all out, look after it. Never been forgotten now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sasha and Chris. Probably running a little bit time behind. Might save the questions if there is any questions till our last two presentations make it through. I think so. I'm just sort of keeping a strict timeline here. I've got my colleague here in front keeping an eye on me, so I better stick to the pattern, to the tune. So our next presentations. Oh, am I gone? Maybe I shouldn't have pressed that. How do I get back? All right. Our next two presenters are Aston Howard, Bardi Jowie Ranger, and Preston Cox, Nyul Ranger. Bardi Jowie Rangers manage up to 126,000 hectares of land and sea country covering the northern tip of the Dampier Peninsula, dotted with monsoon vine thickets. The Nyul Rangers manage around 350,000 hectares of land and sea country in the middle of the Dampier Peninsula, with inland waters, wetlands, bilby and gooley and finch habitat. For some of you that were on the field trip yesterday, obviously got an insight into some of the great work that these the Nyul and Bardi Jowie have been doing. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Preston and Aston, two young and up-and-coming leaders in regards to the work they're doing. All, same bed. Welcome.
Make me feel young now. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the Yarra people on whose country, past, present, and future, that we do our presentation, and I also acknowledge Rangeland Society for inviting us to do a presentation here.
And also the rest of the traditional owners that travel far from around Australia. Thank you.
Okay, I know I'm nervous. I've done this so many times.
We're a little bit nervous just because we had the tour out at one arm and we didn't have a chance to actually go through the presentation. So bear with us.
Hopefully we'll do all right. Okay, a bit of history first. The Dampier Peninsula Fire Working Group was created in 2016 because of a lot of wildfires were burning a lot of country in the Dampier Peninsula, so north of Broome. I was at Beagle Bay when the 2015 fire came through, and it was a huge fire. Started in Yeater Station. They said it was a lightning strike. Burned through Country Downs, I believe, had to get evacuated, and jumped the road towards Carnet Bay and got close to Broome as well. So it was a pretty extensive fire. Ashton will probably talk about the map later, you'll see. So the group was created after that. Just in other words, just said, nah, we just need to stop. So it's a mix of pretty much all of those guys, DFES, Yarrow, Bardi Jowie, Nyul Rangers, pastoral leases, main roads. Just got together and said, no, it's enough, and we need to do something about it. And of course, I should mention Rangelands has been facilitating that since we've started, which is great.
Well, the reason why that we're coming together to collaborate and do fire management on Dampier Peninsula, is because even before 2016, rangers and all the other government departments, pastorals, we all were doing good management on country, doing early season burns, but it's the late season fire that comes through and wipe out all that good work that happens earlier in the year. And you can see from the maps, 2013 to your left, to your right, 14, 15, the orange, if you can see any orange on there, that's early season burns. All the red are late season fires that come on country. And that's been happening even though that we do good work through and early in the year. But you can see the late season, it's a big area. And we wanted to change that, so we had to come together and collaborate to see where the missing links are.
Yeah, so the Beneficial Fire Working Group is made up of different landholders. So we've got 5 native title groups within the peninsula, 3 ranger groups, with Yaro, us, and Barijawi, 4 pastoral stations, 2 shires, I think it's Broome and Derby, and Watercorp as well. And then we've got the other organization, like I did that, DFES, WADBCA, Rangelands, St. Brian's Kimberley, Main Roads, WWF, Sheffield Resources, Kimberley Land Council, and Charles Darwin University. Yeah, and if you look at the map there, you can sort of get an idea of the area that myself and Ashton works in. So to the top of the peninsula, just kind of Barijawi, and sort of middle, this point of works, that square there is kind of us. So it's pretty huge. Yeah.
Ever since the group was made, we have project objectives. We have 4. We want to collaborate peninsula-wide fire management together. We want to create material to communicate and raise awareness about the project. We want to increase capacity of the project. And we're using science and knowledge to adapt to our management. At the start of the year, the Dampier Working Group will come together. We'll present our individual fire planning, and then we'll put it all together, and then we'll see where the missing links, where there's no fire management, and then we'll try to work together to manage that area. These are our targets that we want to measure. We want less hot fires in the late dry season, as you guys seen on the previous maps. We want to burn areas to be small, so animals don't have to travel too far. So we got it's not too far from a burnt area to an unburnt area. Yeah. And then we want to have more mixed vegetation, unlung vegetation in them areas too, for specific plants and animals that need different seeds at different times. Yeah, another one. Come on, one more. And one more. Yeah. This is some of the information that 2015, I need a little pointer. Yeah, 2015, you can see how much fire, that was a real bad fire. 2022, that was also a bad fire, real bad fire. But if you look, you can see all these black areas inside the red. There was only 50% burnt in those late season fires. So half of the vegetation was still intact in the late season fires. And if you even look at the graphs from here, 2004 to 2015, before the project happened, you can see that we've got more higher areas in the we got the lowest of the highest is around 20, and then the highest of the highest is around 40. That's the fire severity. Back before we were collaborating. And when we started collaborating, you can see the difference is way down, even the high is way down. this graph shows the distance from burnt to unburnt area. Sorry. You can see before the project, and then when the project started. Before the project happened, we had up to 1.8 kilometers from a burnt area to an unburnt area to around 1,200 or 1.2 Ks. So that's still a fair bit away to get to an unburnt area for little mammals and reptiles to have shelter and food. That's the averages, and then that's the max averages that used to happen. And you can see in the max averages, that's about 7 Ks to 10 Ks. And then we also dropped that when the project came in. We're going down to 2 K, and our max probably around 7. And it's still under our project's baseline that we plan to meet. Unburnt habitat for animals and plants that needs 3+ seeds and habitat. That was this is a bad year for fire, and the 2022 is a bad year for fire as well. But you can see the 1-year-old is red everywhere. The 1-year-old in 2022 is much smaller, and it's more smaller patches. And it's not all of country getting burned. We've got a mixture of 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. Starting to have more color on that map, not just one. And that's getting better on country from working together. We can see that clearly, and they're both bad years.
Yeah, and I guess one of the big things we've tried to do before the planning and stuff for our fire is to communicate and raise awareness about the project, so letting people know that it's, how it started and what a big success it has become, working with Rainlands and the rest of our collaborators. So we're talking about the project at meetings, bringing it to the schools, doing two-way science with the schools as well, with myself and Badi. We've had a couple of publishing our results in science literature, and we've been talking to community, distributing information like posters and flyers with information and the work that's been done since 2016 and how it's worked. Yeah, like Ashton said earlier, before 2016 there was almost no prescribed burning on the peninsula. Now each ranger team, between us all, so us, Badi and Yaru, do about 4 to 6 weeks of prescribed burning, usually between May and August. Each pastoralists do about 2 to 4 weeks, and DFES and DBCA each do about 2 to 3 weeks. So the collaboration is working and it's getting better.
And when we do come together to do those early our meetings earlier in the year, this is where we can sort of assist with our plans and use different groups to help, and what training and what level the different ranger groups are at, and we can work together to try and help manage the areas that's not getting managed and build our capacity and development in the ranger team.
We'll have to try and be quick because I'm looking at the time,
Yeah.
So using science and knowledge to adapt management, we have a system rigorously measuring the outcomes. So we did a prioritization workshop to find the best biodiversity metrics to monitor, and we have started the work. Monitoring vine thicket conditions, we'll be monitoring vegetation surveys. So you kind of see, I'm not going to explain the whole thing because it looks crazy. But I think it all plays a part with bad fires and good fires. So if we're going to have bad fires, we're going to not have very much animals left or native plant life and stuff like that. Whereas with good fires, you'd have a better chance of having more abundance of our bush food and medicines and animals. So that's kind of what that sort of explains, I think, in a more sophisticated kind of way.
More big trees, more habitat,
Yeah.
more, just more of everything. Less of that, we'll have less of everything else along that line.
Yeah, so quickly, some of the challenges we have is funding. Of course, I think everybody gets that sometimes. Short term or never enough. Infrastructure and assets, not enough. Dealing with the scale, so I mean, just for myself, we've kind of saw the area that we have to work in. I've only got a team of about probably 8 or 10 now with the ladies, and it's a big area for big teams. So dealing with arson, which is a big issue for myself and Ashton as well. We've got people coming, so I'll say this, mainly locals and families that come in after we finish our burn season and think, oh, I'm going to light this, and it doesn't help. Last year, I had to actually ask Ashton and Badi Jawi for help. We had a fight of fire for 3 days on Union country that was threatening 3 communities that was lit up in November. So I was out there for 3 days, didn't sleep. So it was pretty crazy. And the area that was burned that time was a sacred area. And some person, when they decided to light up because they didn't want snakes in their house. So it does get frustrating because all the work we do is we're trying to be as efficient as possible. Dealing with arson, communicating with the TOs across many of our stations to make sure infrastructure is safe. Myself plus Badi Jawi, probably Yaro as well, do hold meetings before we start burning to get everyone together to talk about our plan, what we want to do when we're in their area and that stuff. It's hard to kind of get everybody in the same room at the same time sometimes. That's a big challenge.
Dealing with the arsonists, because of big scale country, it's hard to know who's out there and who's doing it, to communicate that back to traditional owners and their house stations. But the only thing we can do is map what we've burnt, map what's late season and what's not our burns, and that's how we can go back to the communities and tell that story.
And that's us.
And
Thank
that's
you.
us. And that presentation we just presented on behalf of the Dampier Working Group.